Hello and welcome to another video. I'm very excited to give my first impressions on Donkey Kong Bananza. I've been waiting for this one pretty much since it was announced, so let's jump right in. And don't worry, there's going to be basically no spoilers in this. I'm only going to be showing footage from like the first hour of gameplay, nothing that hasn't been seen in the trailer and stuff, so not to worry, I'm not going to be spoiling the story or anything like that. I like jumping into games pretty much blind, so I'm going to try to not spoil anything about it. So at this point, I've put about 30 hours into the game, and I've basically beaten it. I think I fought the final boss and all of that. I got credits. Much like a lot of other games nowadays, there's more stuff to do afterward, which is kind of cool. I like that, but it also makes it kind of weird because it's like, when do you really beat the game? I haven't completed everything there is to do, but I played through basically the whole main story. And so I feel like I'm in a good position to judge the game after, again, about 30 hours of gameplay. I am kind of a slower player, so I tend to take a little bit longer than average to beat a game. Keep that in mind. Maybe it'll only take you 20 hours, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But for me, it was about 30 hours. And the nice thing is I don't really feel like I'm done. I feel like I can keep playing. I'm excited to keep playing it. I was thinking about that when I was sort of jotting down my thoughts for this review and stuff. And I got some footage and I realized I wanted to keep playing even though I kind of had enough footage already. But I started a new save file and I was getting footage and I was like, oh yeah, let's get some more bananas. Let's do some more stuff. I got kind of carried away with it, but it's that kind of game. It's just really, really fun. I feel like lately, pretty much since the beginning of the Switch era, Nintendo has just been hitting it out of the park with their first party big IP games. You know, things like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Animal Crossing New Horizons. The list goes on. I'm sure I'm missing some. Oh, Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Brothers, everything that they've done that was like a first party game that was from a big IP. I feel like I have loved those games, and this is that for Donkey Kong. This game to me is on par with things like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. It's that version of quality and content and fun, but for Donkey Kong. And I heard that it's made by the same development studio that made Super Mario Odyssey. And it kind of shows. There's definitely some of that DNA in here. It's got the whole collecting bananas thing here. Instead of moons, it's bananas. And there's these big open levels that you can traverse. And it's got a similar sort of aesthetic. It's very colorful and vibrant. And yeah, it kind of feels like it. In fact, when the reveal trailer showed, before they actually revealed that it was Donkey Kong, I had guessed that it was Super Mario Odyssey 2. Because it does have a little bit of that vibe to it, but in a good way. And much like that game, it's just so much fun to play. I feel like when I was playing it the whole time, I just had this big grin on my face. It's just a really fun game, but it can be a little bit challenging. Now, challenge is very subjective, and you might find it super easy or whatever, but for me, as somebody who found Super Mario Odyssey fairly easy, except for some of the optional stuff, this was a little bit harder. It wasn't as hard as like Donkey Kong Country or Country 2, but it was definitely more challenging than the average Mario game, I think. It had some pretty good challenge in there, and I kind of liked that. I definitely died a lot in some of the challenge rooms and things like that, and some of the boss fights were a little bit tough. And speaking of the challenge rooms, I really liked those things. There's like these little platforms that you can go into, and sometimes it's a battle challenge, sometimes it's a bonus room with just a bunch of gold in it, and sometimes it's a like sort of puzzly challenge that you have to figure out. Some of them are timed, some of them are not. There's a ton of diversity there, and I really like it. And it reminds me a lot of taking sort of the bonus challenge rooms from DKC and combining them with like the Breath of the Wild shrines where you're finding them around the map. It's just a lot of fun, and whenever I see one of these, I'm always pretty excited to check it out. There's also a ton of them. This is sort of continuing the trend of putting a ton of stuff in these games. Like, I think Mario Odyssey had like 900 moons, and there's like the 900 Koroks in Breath of the Wild, plus all the shrines and all that stuff. This is sort of like that. I think I have somewhere in the vicinity of like 400 bananas in my main file, and there's just so many more to get. It's crazy. There's so much to get. And you don't have to get everything. That's kind of the point. But it's just a lot of fun. It feels like every time I go to a level again, even if I spend hours there, I still find new stuff constantly. And there's like so much to do and to find in every level. Now, I'm only going to show the first 2 levels of the game, which again is like sort of the first hour or so. The first one is kind of a tutorial level, and then the second one you get to is sort of the first main level. And they're just fantastic. I really like them. They all have a theme. It's really, really good. I love the theme of how you travel between them. And I love the different, without spoiling anything, just the different aesthetics of the levels and their denizens, and all of that is really, really good. I feel like there's a lot of really fun new ideas here, but also a lot of callbacks to Donkey Kong and the Donkey Kong Country kind of lore and series. So really good stuff. And speaking of Donkey Kong Country, I feel like this game is a wonderful mix of new ideas while also celebrating Donkey Kong as a series. I feel like there are so many references to so many Donkey Kong games here. There are references to the original DK, to the Donkey Kong Country games. There are references to Donkey Kong 64. There are so many great things here to kind of remind you of, you know, how much maybe you love Donkey Kong, right? Like there's some of the music is remixed from the older games into here, and that was really cool to hear. The Donkey Kong Country games have some of my favorite soundtracks of all time. David Wise, who wrote those soundtracks, is, I think, just one of my favorite composers. I love the music in those. I love the music in Tropical Freeze, which he also did. This soundtrack, to me, is not quite on the level of those, but it's close. It's really close. It's a great soundtrack. The music is fantastic. It's got a lot of nostalgia, some of the tracks, but a lot of the new tracks are really, really good. To me, this is on par with like the Super Mario Odyssey soundtrack. This is really, really good music. Really good use of music in the different game elements. There are times where maybe you hear a theme worked into a new melody for a particular character or for a particular level that just works really well. If you're a fan of the Donkey Kong Country soundtracks and stuff, I think you're going to enjoy the soundtrack here a lot. Talking some more about the gameplay, I feel like it's just a really good example of how you can take like a simple concept like destructible terrain and just run with it and make a ton of fun stuff with it. This reminds me a lot of what they did with like Breath of the Wild, where it's kind of simple, but there's a lot of complexity that emerges from that simplicity and how you interact with the systems and stuff. And that's what this feels like. At first, I wasn't 100% sure how the destructible terrain would fit into all of this. I wondered if it would trivialize too much of the exploration and things like that. And while certainly I'm sure some elements do feel easier with the destructible terrain, they were so creative with it. And it's just so much fun. All of the ideas that they came up with, it feels like every level has different ideas that made me go, oh, wow, that's so cool that they're doing that. And it was really neat. One of the standouts for me was there was a level, and I'm not going to show footage of it here, but there was a level where you could pick up the terrain chunks and throw them, and they would create a pathway in the arc that they fell, and you could walk on that. And I just thought that was so cool. That was such an awesome thing to do, and incorporating that into different situations in the game. It was really, really clever. I love how much creativity they went into with the destructible terrain here. It's fantastic. It doesn't end up feeling just like a gimmick. It feels like really, really thought out and creative level design. And I also think it just fits the character's aesthetic pretty well. I mean, Donkey Kong being like a big, strong sort of gorilla monkey, and he can destroy stuff and break through stuff. It just kind of works. I think it's nice. And it incorporates the sort of classic idea from Donkey Kong Country where he's picking stuff up and throwing it. And that's what you see a lot with this game. A lot of the mechanics are sort of new ideas on stuff that was already there. I recently did my Donkey Kong 64 video, and I complained a bit in that one about the mobility and the way it just kind of feels slow and clunky. This is not that. This is probably the closest I've seen to a 3D Donkey Kong Country. You feel fast. You feel like your attacks can kind of bounce off each other as you're beating up enemies. You've got a roll attack, but it also gives you speed, and you can roll into enemies and hit them, and then roll into another enemy and hit them. You've got punches, you've got throwing. It's got like all of the movesets from Donkey Kong Country, and it just works really, really well. And there's a ton of different moves, and the way that they're introduced into the game is kind of spoilery, so I'm not going to talk about it, but there's a ton of moves, and one of the ways that you kind of manage those moves is through a skill tree, which caught me completely by surprise. I didn't expect the game to have a skill tree, and after I collected enough bananas, the game prompted me to open up the skill tree, and I was like, a skill tree? That's unexpected. And I was looking through it, and there's some really cool stuff on there, and that's what you do with the bananas. You spend them on your skill tree. There's also some other stuff that the bananas come into play with, but yeah, you can spend your bananas on skill trees and improve DK's damage and health and learn new moves and all of that, and it's a lot of fun. It really motivates you to search for all the bananas that you can, and there's some other items to search for as well. There's basically like a gold that's just kind of a currency that you can buy items with and that sort of thing. And there's the banana chips, which you can trade in for bananas. And then each level has some items that you can find that you can trade in for some other stuff that, again, I'm not going to spoil. I realized that like a lot of people probably already watched other reviews or trailers, so you might already know what I'm talking about. But in the event that you're like me and you want to go into it as blind as possible, I just want to assure you that there's a ton in here that you may not expect if you don't know much about the game like myself. And I was just pleasantly surprised with how they incorporated all of these different elements and made them feel really engaging. I think it's a great example of how you can have a lot of things to collect, but everything still has a purpose and everything still feels useful. It's not just collection for the sake of collection. I never felt like I didn't need a collectible. I never felt like I didn't need more gold or more banana chips or more bananas or more of the other stuff. Whenever I saw it, I was like, oh, I gotta go get that. It always felt really, really good. The only exception is at the very end of the storyline, I passed by a few things because I was just like so eager to see the end, because the story is actually really engaging, which I wasn't really expecting. It's funny because I feel like they incorporated the whole Donkey Kong looks for bananas thing. That's like the main premise of the Donkey Kong Country games and even Donkey Kong 64. He's searching for bananas, right? And you have that here, but it also has sort of another element. And I ended up finding the story really engaging and really endearing. Overall, I'd say the game is super wholesome, which I really liked and I didn't expect. And I really loved how they incorporated these elements of story into one game that still very much felt like Donkey Kong. And again, I can't stress enough, if you are a fan of Donkey Kong as a series, I feel like this game really pays homage to the many years of Donkey Kong games. Whether you like Donkey Kong 64 or Donkey Kong Country, there's like a little bit of all of those games put into here, and it's really, really nice. And there were a bunch of things that I did not expect that really surprised me, and I was very happy to see them in the game. It's just so fun. I think it's easily one of the best 3D platformer games I've ever played, right up there with things like Super Mario Odyssey and games like that are just super high quality, lots to do, and just fun. Like, that's the best word to describe it. It's just fun. It doesn't have a ton of stuff getting in the way of the fun. It's just fun. This is definitely the kind of game that I would love to see some DLC for, because I just can't get enough of it. And it makes me very excited to see where they take Donkey Kong in the future. Are they going to continue down the line of the destructible terrain stuff, or are they going to do something different? Personally, I would love for Donkey Kong to get into a place where it's sort of where Mario is, where the 3D games come out and have some really new and exciting ideas, and then there's also a 2D series that continues sort of the traditional approach. And so far, we've been getting those Donkey Kong Country Returns games, and those have been really, really good, especially Tropical Freeze. I think that one's fantastic. But yeah, I'd love to see a Donkey Kong Country Returns 3, and new 3D Donkey Kong games moving forward. Even if it takes, a lot of years to produce, this was just a fantastic entry to the series. And yeah, I'm not sure there's a ton more to say about it. I feel like this game is just so much fun. Totally worth the asking price, in my opinion. I didn't feel that way with Mario Kart World, but with this, I feel so happy that I got my Switch 2. I'm really excited to keep playing it, even though I'm sort of done with the story. There's still more stuff to do. I still want to collect more of the bananas and try to get every skill unlocked. There's just a ton to do, and it's all really, really fun. But what about you? Have you already played it? Are you looking at reviews trying to decide if it's for you or not? I think it's great, but I want to hear what you guys think. So leave me some comments down below telling me your thoughts on it. And as always, thanks for watching.